What's up, journeyers? Welcome to this week's Tuesday live training. Sorry that I'm a couple minutes behind getting started this morning, but that's okay. I also have no voice. It's like halfway there. I was on a coaching call with a client, and it was beautiful, and we didn't want to stop talking. And so that's why I'm a few minutes late. So I hope that's okay. I do hope that's okay, but it just is what it is. So, like, get over it. I'm here now. So, I'm really excited for this week's Tuesday live training. And I'm also a little bit feeling a feeling. I'm a little bit feeling a feeling because one of the stories that I tell myself, and that a lot of people tell themselves about money, is that you shouldn't brag. Right? And this is why people don't want to talk about money. And it's really interesting because I love talking about money. I'll tell you whatever you want to know. Right? I'll tell you whatever you want to know. We have $154,000 net worth. I have no problem telling you that. I have no problem telling you how much money we make. I have no problem telling you that I had my best month ever in my business last month and I brought in $3,400. Okay. So the talking about money and success with money doesn't bother me. But for whatever reason, when we talk about relationships, and I start talking about my relationship, I feel like I'm bragging. And part of this, similarly to the situation about money, is when you truly understand and you recognize that people are struggling, right? When you really see and understand that there are other people who just don't have it as good as you, who are in situations that no one should ever have to go through. When you start talking about how amazing your relationship is, you feel bad. And so I want you to, as you're watching this, I want you to understand that I feel the weight of that. However, I think it is so important that we talk about how money and relationships impact each other. The number one cause of divorce in the United States today is money fights and money problems. So if you cannot figure out how to talk about money inside of your relationship, you are not going to be successful. Period. End of story. Okay. I have many, many clients. I have one in particular that part of her homework every week is have this conversation with your husband. Have this conversation with your husband. Talk about this. And the first week it was, how did the conversation go? It was really uncomfortable, right? It starts very uncomfortable. And as we go along, it gets less and less uncomfortable. And then it starts to actually get exciting because now you're on the same page. And when you're on the same page, so much more can get accomplished. You can actually bring your dreams into fruition. And so if you are watching today, say hi for one so that I know you're on. But I also want you to tell me if you have a partner, a spouse, if you share finances with somebody, or if you share a household with somebody, whether you share finances or not, I'll talk about that. Let me know. Do you have a spouse that you share finances with? Do you have a spouse when you don't share finances? How does that work within your relationship? And how do money conversations feel? Tell me all the things in the comments. And also just say hi. I want to see if I can actually see the comments. Some days you can, some days you can't. So when you start thinking about being on the same page in a relationship, I'm specifically talking about money, but this applies to freaking everything, okay? Have you ever run a three-legged race? Have you ever run a three-legged race? You know what I'm talking about, where they like tie your ankles together and you're trying to like get somewhere, right? Can you imagine trying to run a three-legged race with someone who thinks that the finish line is over there and you think the finish line is over there? What's going to happen? How beneficial is that going to be? Are you going to be able to get to the finish line if one person's going that way and one person's going that way when your ankles are tied together? Not a fucking chance. You can't get there. You have to know where you're going to be on the same page. So the first step to getting on the same page in a relationship is always, 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 always understanding where the finish line is. Always. So the first conversation I tend to have my clients have with their spouse is, what do we want? What are we actually trying to create? What do we actually want to build? What do we actually want to accomplish with our money? Because if you don't have the same finish line, it doesn't matter what strategies you implement. It doesn't matter how many times you have a conversation. If you don't have the same finish line, you're never going to get there because you're tied together at the ankle trying to go in different directions. It's just neither of you, unless you literally knock down and drag the other one along, you're not going to get where you're trying to go. And that's not pretty, okay? So that's the first thing. I will tell you, my husband and I had, our dreams are very interesting because we both collectively have two very different dreams. So, meaning we both want both things. So we're on the same page. We're just all over the place. One is we would like 50 acres, preferably about 46 because we want more land than the Vatican, and I'm pretty sure they have 45. It's like a funny thing. Anyways, we want about 50 acres of land. We want it to have a natural running water source. We want it to have lots of trees. We want to be able to hunt on our own land. So we want it to be kind of stocked, whether it's fish in the stream, deer mostly, possibly turkeys. So we want to be able to hunt on our own land, have a fresh water source on our own land, lots of trees, space for an orchard, space for a farm, space to raise chickens, and possibly pigs. Okay? Maybe goats. I don't know. I don't know. The purpose of goats is just for milk and goat cheese, which is great, but I don't know how to make it, so then it's weird. So, hey Marie. So that's one of our big dreams that we have together as a couple, is we want this land where we can have like a mini farm, we can hunt, we can fish, we can ride four-wheelers, we can just enjoy life on the land. We also simultaneously desire to have and live in a 40-foot fifth wheel with children and a dog and travel the country all the time. Like we simultaneously want a tiny little space and 50 acres. Whatever. But that we both want both things. So we both know what we're aiming for. So having that dream together has been really fun for us because we get to start getting excited about it. Because when we start making decisions about what we're doing with our money, we get to go, oh, that's what's going to get us towards that. That's what's going to get us towards getting a rig. That's what's going to get us towards getting a new truck, right? If we're going to get a new truck now, we might as well get the one that can pull a rig, right? We get to think about the things that lead us closer and closer to our goals because we have the same goals, okay? So that's the first thing. Again, you can't run a three-legged race with somebody who you're both trying to go different directions. So if you want to be on the same page with money, the very first step is not, what do we do with this money? It's not, how do we run the budget? How do we pay the bills? Do we use a credit card? None of that matters if you're headed in different directions. Okay? So the first step to getting on the same page is, what's the finish line? Get that finish line together. Dream together about what that gets to look like. Okay? Now, the next most important thing about getting on the same page is communication. And all of you who have ever seen any video about relationships are now collectively rolling your eyes at me. Like, I know, communication is so important. But I want to talk specifically about communication about money. Because communication about money is different. It's just different. It's inherently different than communication about anything else in your life. Because money is super triggering, right? Not only is money super triggering, but if you are in a relationship with someone of the opposite sex, we both have different feelings about money. And I will tell you, even in same-sex relationships, there tends to be this same balance where one person kind of has a feeling towards this way and one person kind of has a feeling towards this way. And so definitely explore that, right? But generally speaking, in generalities, men see money. Yes, yeah, that changes everything. Speaking in generalities, men view money as kind of a scorecard. Like, how am I doing as a provider? How am I doing as a husband? Am I providing for my family? It's like this, I call it white knight syndrome. Although syndrome makes it sound bad, right? But it's men need to feel like they are providing for their family. Women, on the other hand, need to feel secure. It's about security, and not just security for now, but security for the future and the dream that we have, right? It's, if we do this now, are we going to be okay? Are we going to be okay? What if this happens? What if this doesn't happen? It's fear and security that drives women's conversations about money. So here comes Susie, terrified about what's going on with the money, comes to her husband and says, we've got to get our financial shit together. This is crap. We've got to be able to pay for stuff. This is stupid that we can't do this. I can't believe we don't know how to do this. We've got to get our stuff together. Here's husband going, I work so hard. I work hard for this family. I provide for this family. Don't tell me what I can't do. So you've got super terrified woman to super defensive dude. It doesn't work. Okay? It doesn't work. If you come at it from this place of fear as a woman to your husband who just wants to know he's doing a good job, he's going to get defensive. You're still terrified. You cannot have an effective conversation. You cannot have an effective conversation. So as you're learning each other, where do you come from? How do you feel about money? What's the perspective that you have? And that's a whole other conversation about how to have those conversations, right? But understand the perspective that your spouse has about money and come at the conversation from their perspective. For me, with Robert, this looks like, you do such a great job providing for our family. And I'm so grateful. I'm grateful that you have consistent income. I'm grateful that you provide health insurance for us. I'm grateful that you provide this consistency in the finances. I'm grateful that you retiring means that we will have a set income that neither of us have to go to work for. I'm so grateful for that. And I thank you so much for providing that. Also, I'm really scared. I'm very scared that, again, eliciting the white knight, right? You've gone to your provider husband and you've said, and again, listen to me, even if your husband doesn't bring in isn't the sole provider financially, he still feels this way. Guarantee you, 100%. Guarantee you. Even if he's not the sole provider, he still feels this way, right? He still cares about taking care of his family. So you now go to your little white knight and you say, honey, thank you so much. I love how you care about taking care of this family, right? And he goes, I do care about you. He gets into white knight mode. And then you say, but I'm really scared. What's your little white knight gonna do? Right? What's your white knight gonna do? Your white knight's gonna be like, I got you. What do we need to do? You're right. I don't want you to be scared. I can take care of this. What should we do? Right? Now this goes the same way for men, right? If you're a man and you feel like your wife and you are not on the same page, right? You cannot come to her with, I'm the provider. I'm going to take over finances. I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to make this happen. Because she goes, huh? What? What do you mean you're going to make? We haven't made it happen so far. She's scared. She doesn't understand. So as a man, you get to come to your wife from her perspective. You know what, honey, I was thinking about this, and I know that you're really worried about the money, and I know you're scared, and I don't want you to be afraid. I want to make sure that we're taken care of. And so let's sit down and work out what this needs to look like so that we can feel secure in this process. Dudes, swallow your fucking pride, because your wife will be like, oh, honey, thank you so much. I'm so grateful that you want to have this conversation, right? Now, if you guys think I'm crazy, please drop crazy, because I understand that these conversations, they're different, right? But you have to understand that men and women think differently. And again, even in same-sex couples, you will see one person feeling one way and one person feeling another, okay? I actually have one set of clients right now where the husband, it's a provider thing, but it's also a lot of fear, right? And with the wife, it's like, I want us to be okay. I want us to provide. and I trust that it's going to be okay. And so let's just do it. And he's like, what? Right? Like, it's like backwards, but it's still there, right? So again, I'm speaking in generalities, but the most important thing is that you understand where is your partner coming from and you approach the conversations that way. I want to give you an example. So I manage the finances in our household. I know you guys are shocked, right? You guys are totally shocked. But I manage the finances in our household. My husband isn't great with numbers. He doesn't like looking at them. It kind of overwhelms him. When we very first started doing budgeting, we actually would sit down every month or twice a month and look at the budget. And what I would do is I would fill the whole thing out, all the budget numbers and everything, and I would bring it to him and say, okay, here's what we've got. And he felt very like undermined and almost demasculinized, like, was it demas? You know what I mean? Emasculated, whatever the word is, right? He felt like he was being walked on because he didn't have a part in the process because he wanted to be a provider. He wanted to be part of providing and taking care of the family. And so he said he was able to tell me what he needed. Okay. He said, can you bring it blank so we can write it down together? I said, absolutely. So I brought a list of the general bills and the general numbers, and then I brought blank forms, and we just went through it line by line, and we made changes where needed, and he was able to say, hey, we need to take care of this month also, let's put that in there, right? And he was able to give his input. And so very early on in our process, we figured out what works, right? What works in terms of communication, because me just bringing it to him already laid out, and here's what we're going to do, it didn't work for him, and it made him feel like he didn't get a say, like he didn't get to be part of helping to provide for the family and take care of things, right? So we had that conversation. So fast forward a few years, I quit my corporate job. Was it? No, this was well before that. I think this was well before that. I was working, we had, quote, plenty of money, and I remember he wanted something, he wanted to buy something that cost a few $100s, and I said, we can't afford that right now. We can't afford that right now. And my dear, sweet provider, white knight husband comes to me a couple of days later, and he goes, I was thinking, I think maybe I'll go get a job in the evenings, like delivering pizzas. And I was like, what? Why? Literally, I was like, why? Like, where's this coming from? And he's like, well, you said we couldn't afford it, and I want to make sure we have enough money. And I realized that without realizing it, I had triggered his white knight syndrome by saying we can't afford this. When in reality, what I meant was that money is going other places, right? That money is supposed to be going into savings. That money is allocated for other things. Not that we actually were about to be in the red, didn't have enough money, weren't being provided for. It was something that was not important to me. Another thing. And so that money had been allocated elsewhere, but we had plenty. And so I learned that when I have conversations with my husband, I need to be very clear about where money is and whether we have enough, right? That he is providing, he is doing a good job, because otherwise I'm going to activate his sweet little white knight syndrome and he's going to want to go deliver pizzas, right? And so understanding that communication about money is not just sitting down and saying, here's what we need to do. Here's where you're screwing up, and here's what we need to fix. Communication about money also comes with understanding how the other person feels and thinks about money and approaching your conversation from a perspective that they will understand. From a perspective that does not put them on the defensive, but actually makes them feel heard and valued. And you guys, this is hard. Money is just a symptom of other problems. There's one woman in my group right now oh, thanks, Ashley. There's one woman in my group right now that I've had all these conversations with. I've talked to her about these things, and her big concern is security. Are we going to be able to take care of our kids? Are we going to be able to provide for them later? Are we going to be able to save for retirement? Are we going to be able to do all these things? If we keep going the way we are, the money has now become a symptom of the real underlying problem. And in her specific situation, The real underlying problem is a marriage problem. It is a relationship problem. Because when she comes to her husband and says, honey, I'm really scared. I'm worried that we're not going to be able to do these things. He basically looks at her and says, I don't give a fuck. And this is why this message today is called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Because the ugly truth is money is just a symptom of underlying problems. And sometimes it's a good thing because that helps us to reveal that there are underlying problems. And when you go to your spouse, male or female, this person who is supposed to be your partner, and you express a concern, and you express that you're worried, you express that you're concerned, you express a fear, you try to get to a common dream, you can't find a common dream, you don't want the same things long term. And I don't mean that you have different ideas of how to get there, but you want different things entirely. Okay? And not only do you want different things entirely, but no willingness to compromise. Not only no willingness to compromise, but no effort put forth to get there. Active effort put forth to do the opposite, and complete disregard for feelings. Money is just a symptom. So the ugly truth about getting on the same page in relationships about money is that sometimes it's not possible. The ugly truth about trying to get on the same page in your relationship when it comes to money is that sometimes it's not possible. Now, marriage counseling, relationship counseling, all very important. Do them. I want you to understand that sometimes the money fights and the money problems that end 50% of marriages in the United States are actually a symptom of a true underlying relationship dysfunction. So please take these things into consideration. Like I said, get on the same page about where you want to go. You have to have the same destination. Communicate with each other in a way that the other person can be not defensive and feel heard, right? Then you can get on the same page about how to get to the goal. But if those things aren't even happening, if you don't agree on a destination, if you don't aren't able to communicate, if the other person doesn't actually have any regard for your feelings, you don't have a money problem. You have a relationship problem. And all I can do is encourage you to get help, encourage you to find help there. Now, I used to be the type of person that I believed, and in some ways I still do, I believed that women who chose to keep their finances separate from their husband, or I actually knew somebody once who said she embezzled, literally used the word embezzled money from her marriage to have her own savings account. And all of these feelings being just in case something happens so that I can have money to leave. I firmly believe that putting that energy out there, especially at the beginning of a relationship, the beginning of a marriage, literally you are asking for your marriage to fail. It's an energetics thing. It's true. However, when you get to a point where you realize that this is no longer a money problem, this is a relationship problem, and the relationship itself needs work and may not be salvageable, then setting money aside for yourself, having your own ability to create financial independence for yourself is powerful. It gives you freedom. I had a client very early on in my financial coaching, like this time last year, who this was her situation. And we worked through different options, different things that could happen, and got her debt paid off. And when we got her debt paid off, when we got it taken care of, when we moved past those things, that gave her the freedom to step away from a toxic relationship. Okay? So the ugly truth about money problems in relationships is sometimes it's not the money that's the problem. Okay? So I'm saying this because I want to empower some of you who are having money problems in your relationships to get help beyond the money. Okay? Start with some money strategies, right? Get on the same page about where you want to go, get some help. And this is something that I do. I work with couples all the time about what's your common goal? What are your common values about money, right? How do you feel about it together? Because sometimes it's the how that's disagreed upon, okay? But when you can agree upon the why and the where you're going and what you want in the future, then the how can be compromised, right? The how can be tweaked. The strategy can be adjusted to get to the common goal, okay? And this is something I do. I work with clients, I work with couples all the time to figure out whether there's a common goal, okay? And most of the time there is, right? Most of the time you want the same things in the future, you just disagree on how to get there. That's where I come in, because I help you figure out how to get there, right? Because it's important. I believe that marriages that show that have financial problems is a symptom of an underlying problem. Sometimes it's just communication. We're just not communicating well. So we can shift it, right? We can adjust how we communicate about money. Sometimes it's the goals are different, but we can again tweak the goals to make it something you both want, right? But it's, I think, and I've seen this, like I said, there's a woman in that group now who is having a situation where her husband clearly just does not give a flying crap how she feels. Doesn't care. Spends money on whatever the hell he wants with complete disregard for what needs to happen in the future, with what needs to happen to take care of the kids. Complete disregard. Sometimes the money is just a symptom. Okay? Now, this is kind of depressing today, you guys, but I believe that if you are wanting the same thing in the end, you can get on the same page. If you both have the same dream, you can get on the same page. If you both want to get to the same target, if you both have the same desires for how to provide for your kids, then you can get on the same page with the how. It's easy at that point. So step one is dream together. Step one is dream together. Step one is, what do we want? What do we want to create? What do we want it to look like? What do we want? We want a dream house, but what's it actually going to look like? What's it going to smell like? Where is it going to be? What are we going to hear? Dream in high definition. Get a really clear vision of what you want to create together as a couple, right? And then you can move forward with the how. Then you can move forward with, what does the strategy need to look like to get us there, right? That becomes the easy part at that point, okay? So the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good news is this is so possible. I have this. My husband and I had a lot of money fights early on because I wasn't working. We had a single income. We had a lot of money fights early on. Part of that was just communication. We just weren't communicating well, right? We were not communicating expectations either. Unmet expectations are a huge, like, unmet expectations that were never communicated in the first place, one of the most common reasons for fights. Men are not mind readers, guys. They're just not. And neither are women, even though we think we are. So if you have an expectation or a desire or something that you want to have a conversation, to talk about a certain thing, you have to communicate that. Okay, so communication is the second thing. Not only communicating, like just do it, actually have conversations, let those conversations shift from uncomfortable to fun, but also communicate in a way that makes the other person feel heard and feel seen and feel loved. My husband is so protective of me. I made a massive investment once. I ended up working 60 plus hours a week. I burned myself out so badly to the point where it affected my physical health. It affected my emotional health, because I was just burning the candle at both ends. And so when I started talking to my husband about building this business, his biggest fear was not anything about whether I was successful. He was worried that in order to get there, I was going to burn myself out and then not be present in my life emotionally and physically. And so when I went to him with a $5,000 investment, that was the conversation we had to have. It had nothing to do with the money. It had nothing to do with the money. It was, if you do this and spend this money, what happens to your time? What happens to your emotions? Are you going to burn yourself out because you made this investment? Right? Because he understands me. He didn't care about the money at all. At all. He was like, yeah, sure. But don't work 80 hours a week. Right? So when you really understand each other's values and each other's heart and where you're coming from, having these conversations about money becomes so much easier. We've been working on our budget together for probably 4.5, 5 years. And nowadays, I literally, like, the beginning of the month, I'm like, sweet, here's how much we saved. Our net worth went up by $4,000. We're doing a great job. Have a good month. That's it. We don't really talk about the specific numbers anymore because we've dialed it in so well that we don't have to have bi-weekly budget meetings, right? Because we dialed it in. We communicate well. I know how to go to him and say, hey, if we really want this, we can't do this. He gets it. He's like, okay, well, let's do that then, right? You just have to learn. You have to learn each other, which is part of relationship building anyways. Because again, the money is usually just a symptom of another problem. Okay? Now, homework. This is the longest Tuesday Live training I've ever done, but I'm really passionate about relationships and money. Your homework, should you choose to accept it, your challenge, and challenges are just opportunities for learning and growth, is to schedule a sit-down conversation with your spouse. And I say schedule for a reason. Do not corner your spouse tonight and have this conversation. Okay? Schedule the conversation. It could be tonight, but tell them, hey, honey, tonight I'd really like to just have like a quick conversation about money. Can we sit down after the kids go to bed? No, tonight's not good. Okay, how about tomorrow night, right? Schedule a sit-down conversation. And when you sit down and talk about money, the only thing I want you to talk about is your common destination. What is your common dream? 5 years, 10 years, pick a date. What do you want your life to look like at that point in time? And feel into that together. Find the common dream. Because when you have a common dream and a common destination, running a three-legged race together is easy because you want to go the same way. Okay? Figuring out the how and the how do we move our legs and which legs go first and which legs go next, that comes later, right? You'll figure it out. You'll get into a rhythm. My husband and I are in a rhythm. We have basically zero money fights. Honestly, I can't even remember that the last time we had a money fight. We've had lots of tense money conversations when we have to reprioritize things, right? I'm like thinking about it, I'm like, I don't even know the last time we actually had a tense money conversation. Because we communicate really well and we have a common dream and we want the same things. And it makes it easy. Okay? So the good news about relationships and money is that when you get on the same page, it's so easy. Our net worth has gone up by $54,000 in the last 13 months. When you get on the same page and you want the same things, it's easy. It's easy as fuck, right? The bad news is if you're not on the same page, it's not easy. It's hard. It takes work. And even once you do kind of get on the same page about your destination, getting on the same page about the how takes work. Okay? That's what I'm here for. Is to get you guys on the same page. The ugly, sometimes when you have money and relationship problems, sometimes the money is not the problem. Okay? So, if you want to have a conversation about how I can help get you on the same page with your spouse, you can private message me. I'll drop a link to grab a consult time. Free consult. We'll just jump on a call and talk about how I can help. And sometimes I can even give you like, oh, do this, and like that works, right? Sometimes my free advice gets you all the way there, right? So let me know. Click the link in the comments to schedule a free consult. Shoot me a message and we'll talk about it because this relationship thing will make or break your finances. It will. All right. Sorry that was a little heavy today, but I have so much hope. I have so much joy and excitement for what you guys get to create, because when you get on the same page and you work together when you're with your money, it's synergy. Amazing things can happen. All right. All right. Love you guys. Yeah, as always, trust yourselves and enjoy the journey. See you next week.